Okay, just to jump in the beginning I have to say that I'm sitting here rather as an alien, because I'm representing an institution, a funding institution, the North Rhine-Westphalian Kultursekretariat over there. It's NRW. And so I'm afraid I have to say some words of our work in the beginning before we switch to Impulse Festival, which is our main topic. Well, this Kultursekretariat, this cultural office, it's existing since, has been existing since 40 years now. And as I said yesterday, we have 21 city members with cities like Cologne, such as Düsseldorf, Dortmund and others. And we are working in a kind of network structure together with the cities, doing and organizing, sometimes initiating and mostly funding cultural events or initiatives. And this is about mostly digital art at the moment and international arts on the other hand. But of course there are many other programs and projects we do in literature, in arts exchange and so on. But one accent of our work especially is the theater and the performative arts, because all these member cities we have have their own municipal theaters. This is one of the essentials of the membership in the NRW Kultursekretariat, and so theater is really a very important accent. And so all of the cities who have these theaters, they have certain amounts and certain budgets for these theaters, about 25 million euro and more per year. And so it was necessary for this institution, Kultursekretariat, even 25 years ago, to establish a festival, an initiative concerning in terms of independent theater and off-scene, which at that time was quite rather new, or let's say it was not even normal to deal with this subject and topic. And this is what I found when I came 10 years ago to the NRW Kultursekretariat, directing it, and what I found there was a festival directed by the director of the NRW Kultursekretariat, Dietmar Schmidt, who founded this Impulse Festival. And the first I had to do then was to change the shape or to the format, because it was very heavy and difficult to finance the festival, as it is still very difficult. And this meant, and this was the consequence, was to make a biennale out of that annual festival, which it was before. And so we had an Impulse Theater Biennale for several years now, till today, but we are at the moment changing this model towards an annual model again. What I have to say is our budget, the NRW Kultursekretariat budget entirely, is only about 1 million euro for 21 cities, so it's really not much money. When I heard you have $1 million for your festival, I got jealous in a way. And but our work is always, as I said, networking, and in combination with cities, with institutions, with people. So this is the way we match the budget for the festival as well. So we give only a part of the money to the festival, and the rest is coming from the cities, from the institutions, and from the federal government of North Rhine-Westphalia. This is important to say. And another important thing to say is that when the festival started 25 years ago, it was a kind of best-of festival. It was called like best-of festival, and it changed when I started to give a new format and shape to the festival, to a festival concerning remarkable productions, remarkable performances, and not this best-of model. It was not followed again. And this is my first question to you. Florian, you are directing this festival for the second time now, this year. You started in 2013, and we always want to sometimes have discussions about this question of best of on the one hand and remarkable or whatever on the other hand. What's your approach to this festival, curating it in a very new way as you do now?
Yeah, well, in a way, Impulse is an interesting example for a conference like this, because it is a festival where at first glance you think you cannot do anything with it, because it is very clear rules. It was created as a best-of festival, as a counter-proposal to Theatertreffen, where the big city theaters productions are happening. It is for the German-speaking scene, so it's not per se an international festival, and it's clearly for theater, independent theater, but so it has like very clear definitions and a very strong expectation from the times of Dietmar Schmidt what it is supposed to be, and it was already changed then by my predecessors Matthias von Hartz and Tom Stromberg. But maybe to talk about so in a way what you do with this festival is playing with these expectations and limitations, I guess, and maybe just to give just 1 minute of a context of what other formats I'm doing at the moment to see the discrepancy to this and the Impulse Festival, or that I did in the last years. Like one was a project of 160 hours non-stop marathon with 100 people from all over the world on art and politics. So activists, artists, theorists, non-stop in Graz, being in the machinery of discussions and performances and like really pushing the format of the festival. Or a work which would be a performative conference, a conference within an ethnological museum, so a hotspot of post-colonial discussions, of course, which doesn't have lectures, but only performative settings, performative interventions from choreographers like Alexandra Pirici to visual artists like Yael Batana, etc. Or a third one, a congress called Artist Organizations International, where in a very rigid Congress format, together with the artist Jonas Stahl, we invited 16 artist organizations from Azawad, Kurdistan, but also Berlin, Western countries, and so on, really to have a political discussion about what artist organizations do. And again, a very clear format, a clear choice, also very strong curatorial proposals, because these were initiatives created sometimes together with artists. And on the other hand, then you have a festival like Impulse, which has this clear demand in a way, and this is, I think, the interesting thing to play with. So what we from the beginning did was in the choice, for example, there was a jury choosing the works before, and we now have a council, advisory board, artistic board that has sociologists, politologists, visual art people, theater people in there. So we have a completely different discussion around works, which might be also lead to the question of the quality. Of course, there are criteria for why we think works are good, but when we take serious what we are talking here, also is these criteria are also shifting. So is it not just the valuable criteria if a sociologist that works on the European borders says, but the representation of people on in these shows is ridiculous, it's wrong, it doesn't represent. Is this a valuable artistic criteria as well, for example, and so on? So what is if you bring other criteria that at the first moment might not be purely aesthetical? So I don't believe purely aesthetical exists, but like to really challenge these questions, and by this kind of opening the question also of quality of works, of course, and having a discussion about this.
So what would you say? What makes your choice? At the end, it's your choice you make. I mean, there's a council and there's this advisory board, but at the end, it's you who selects the productions, the performances. What is your criteria? Is it about quality? Is it about the context in which you put these productions during the festivals? Is it about this, the landscape from where you take these performances? Because I have to add on that it's about the German-speaking part of Europe. This is the frame for the festival. It's about performances of this place in Europe. So there are some coordinates. But how would you say? What do you value most of it? Is it the quality, whatever it may be? Is it the context in which you put it? Is it a political or social approach in which you want to put these productions and performances? What's your approach?
I guess probably 80% of the criteria are the ones that most of us would claim, and they're therefore rather boring to mention. Of course, it's about, is it a good show, is it intelligent, is it well done, is it artistically surprising, and I mean, this, I think, is of course in the core of it. If it's a horrible, boring show, it doesn't help any but I think it's also about that Impulse is very much supposed also to map a certain field. So it's about, we try to have rather consequent, let's say consequent artistic approaches, very different handwritings of artists. So I think that was also a reason for not having there was also an award for the best performances, even still with Matthias von Hartz and Tom Stromberg, where we said, like, how can you compare an artist who tries to have a memorial minute of silence in Cologne with Sheike, which was a bar project and inszeniert a staged bar, which is the festival center, and the third show is a more classical show with actors. So how would you say which one of them is best? It doesn't really make sense. You need to have other criteria. So I think we're rather looking for really artistic handwritings that are in a dialogue to each other. And we also try to bring these works in a certain relationship with each other. As Anja said yesterday, yeah, how many people do see more than 2 shows? Maybe not so many, but we offer the possibility to say, like, these works are in a dialogue with each other. These are artists that are in the same world, so somehow they are in a dialogue, and sometimes in a very opposite view on things, and sometimes maybe very related.
I was talking about this construction and network in which the Kultursekretariat is working all the time, and this is relevant for the festival as well, because it took place in the past in 4 different cities of North Rhine-Westphalia. They are not really far from each other, but it's, of course, has been some kind of challenge in the past. But now it's changed toward the concentration on one city and one institution, one theater, or let's say performance house, as for example this year, here in Mülheim. Of course, you are not only dealing with your council, with your ideas and with the performances you see, but also with the interests and the own aspects of these production houses you're collaborating with. What does this mean for your work now for the next future? Because in the past, it was an important role of the production houses, but now it is really profiled in a new way by this participation of the houses. And the next question is, what's about the participation of the audience or of the environment of the cities themselves when you make this festival, for example, for Mülheim?
Well, I think it's one of the, actually this is a really great situation to have a closer collaboration, and we will work on it that they get even more into that next year, because one of the limitations of this festival is, as I said, coming from this best of idea, it's not a production festival per se, so it's really an inviting festival at most parts. And we kind of like also to play with that, because so many works, even if you invite them, they have to be adapted. They're site-specific, they're context-specific. So even inviting a show doesn't mean you just need the black box. Often you not just need the black box, you need to do more about it. But still, it's about these invitations, and shows come, are presented, and then they leave again. So that's the core of it. So that's also formally maybe a bit boring part, but it's the important part about the festival. And then we try to develop works in the partner cities, so in the house in the city we are in, like with Mülheim, but also with Cologne and Düsseldorf, the other cities where we try to really develop also something that is more local specific in a way. And it's also a way of challenging, let's say, it's a way of challenging this logic of guest performances, that we can do something else there. It's trying to challenge a bit the logic of just invitations, and it is also challenging a bit the logic of the German-speaking area where the artists are supposed to come from. So that was a decision that we together in the beginning took, not to change this aspect, because first I said, like, what is a national festival? It's completely not an idea that I can relate to. And then I more and more thought it's actually interesting. Not only it's a kind of unique selling point, all the Goethe Institute directors come to see it because of this, and other colleagues. It also plays a role. They also somehow, it's in the air that's the best of, that helps marketing-wise. But at the same time, it's also, like in the last edition and this edition, we have of course artists coming from with passports from Denmark, from Congo, from the US, from Lebanon, from Russia, etc. You know, so in a way, by saying this is the German-speaking scene and inviting people that live and work in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, you also show that this doesn't mean that they have all German grandmothers or something like this. So you can show. So I think it's a very international festival for a German-speaking festival. And to come just to the aspect of the projects we try to develop in the cities, the other thing is the idea of theater that is there. Even though it was for independent theater, it still had a very, over the years, mainly a clear idea what is theater. Already Tom and Matthias challenged that to a degree, and we try to do that even more, to think of like what is in the core of theater if it's a theater festival and everybody expects something. So like last edition, we initiated work in Cologne by the Israeli artist Yael Batana, who wanted to do to transfer the Holocaust memorial of 2 minutes of standstill in the city to Cologne, and enlarge it at the same time to the victims of all right-wing fascism. So that means in Cologne, where the German people know one of the bomb attacks of the NSU, the right-wing underground terrorist organization, small or big, we don't really know, but a terrorist organization that put a bomb in Cologne. And she said, no, but we cannot only commemorate the past, we also have to commemorate this. And so we said, it was a very controversial project, but for us, we said, like, if people come together to the performance of a commemoration, this is also a theater work for us. It's different if she would do it in the visual art context where she usually is. It's in the theater context. Or in this year we do, to just mention 2 projects that are clear or public already that we do. In Cologne we work together with Phil Collins, the visual artist Phil Collins, who is teaching in Cologne and he's teaching in Ramallah, and they do a bus project developed with the students together in Ramallah and in Cologne. So it's also something that is developed from there. And also for us an interesting situation, what does it mean as a performance, as a theater work, even though he's a filmmaker by official profession, I guess. And the third one to also show, which maybe is in the borders of what the festival can do, but again trying to work with the limitations, that together with the Ringlockschuppen and Urbane Künste Ruhr, we initiate a silent university in Mülheim, which is a project initiated by a Kurdish artist, Ahmet Öğüt, which takes the principle of the open university, so a self-organized university, but everybody teaching in there are academics, or people working in the academic field in their home countries that came to the Ruhr area and have no permission to work here. Either no permission to work generally, or the papers, their degrees are not accepted, and so on. So so the silent refers to the silenced knowledge that cannot be transferred. And this is, of course, in the borders of what our job is in a way, but very important to really bring these projects, also because it is a project where Ahmed rightfully says, if you don't want to do that for at least 3-5 years, you don't even need to start. And that's something that as a festival, I cannot promise anything longer than July this year, and then we hopefully will continue. So it's only possible because Ringlockschuppen took it on as their project, and so really it's also about what does it mean to do these things in the frame of a festival which has this strong tradition and strong image in the public. So playing with the limitations is actually really, I think, one of the interesting things of this festival.
But to emphasize again what I was asking before, part of my question before, how independent can your work, your creating work be in this framework of many institutions and partners in which this festival takes place. I think it's much more about that than, for example, Theatertreffen at Berlin or other comparable festivals. So we have the cities and with their own opinions. You have these production houses with, of course, their own aspects, which certainly have to play a keen role in this, all of this. And you have somebody like me or Kultursekretariat in the background. You have the Kunststiftung Arts Foundation North Rhine-Westphalia. So there are many expectations also concerning audience development, for example. What about the importance of how many people you get in the performances? How much are you aware of the necessity, or do you have to be aware of this necessity, or do you think this is just one aspect which might be legitimate?
You're asking as my boss, or?
No, it's just about. I'm just representing all these different partners.
No, I understand. I think actually the situation for the festival, the organizational situation for the festival is really complex with all these partners and all these people that possibly could talk in there. On the other hand, that also because it's so many, I think it also relativizes the influence. I think for me, in terms of artistic choices, I think it's very, I mean, my job is artistic director, so this is, and I'm very clear about that. On the other hand, I really hope that it's true that I really like to talk to people. I also, you know, like in our team, also the production manager is in there and so on when we discuss works. And with the partners of the venues and with the advisory councils, okay, there's limits to time and where you can be at one place, but I rather would say that that we try, and we can probably be even better in it. It's a part of a communication, so that in the end, I think a lot of ideas whom to invite, when I then talk to Matthias Brenze from Ringlock and say we invite us, then it's like, I don't feel like, okay, with some shows maybe we put them in, but I would hope that it's a communication. But of course, in the end, it has to be a festival that makes sense together, and in the end, I would decide it. But I think it's not really a big issue. And audience development, we'll see. I mean, it's different cities. It's also, we are every time in different cities. We are very much dependent on this time Ringlock Schuppen, next time LFT in Düsseldorf, in questions of audience development, because we are a UFO landing here for a while. There's no, with the structure of this festival, there's no way of changing it. I'm not aware of all the situations within Mülheim and so on. So then the festival structure would have to completely change if one wanted a festival that is more doing this. So I'm really dependent on the support of everybody involved.
I have to play this role of advocatus diaboli because I'm of course referring to many aspects of the of all these financial partners of the festival, and as you know, many of them are asking how much audience, how much publicity does this festival develop, and how many interests of us are regarded by this festival. So this is a question about independence of curating.
Yeah, but they usually ask you and not me, so that's okay.
That's right, but this is why I have to pass this question to you, I'm afraid. And this is about independency and curating.
But, I mean, generally, I mean, everybody knows this question of audience development and so on. We all want audience, we all will do our best to I mean, everybody of us in the space will do that. It's not primary. First we do the program, and then we think like how to motivate people, how can we communicate, how can we be as open as possible to raise it. On the other hand, it's a specific festival, it's a specific place. I mean, if people want a festival with 20,000 visitors, then it has to be a different festival. But within the limits that we have, of course, we want as many people and as diverse audience as possible. And maybe more interesting for me would be, in a general, but it's also for all of us, how do we get a more diverse audience? So that's what I'm more interested in than in bigger numbers. Like the Silent University of Ahmed Oeid doesn't have an audience, it only has participants, but it will be completely different participants than we usually have in the festival, and I guess also then the Ringlock Schuppen usually has its audience. So the next thing would be, is there also another exchange where people also come to see shows, or you know, that's a long-term thing to think of, and this would be for me more interesting to think of. But again, this festival is very specific. we cannot manage to really to have a lot of audience development in terms of diversity. We can try together with the partners where we're in what is possible, but that means also what is on stage, which artists we invite, do other people feel represented by the works we show or not there. So this festival is, I think, in the limitations, also in terms of openness and so on, also representing a scene. So, and we are part of this scene together with the partners and all the artists, where changes in whom we represent and who represents who are happening. And we can do maybe a little bit be part of in trying to change it, but mainly we can also try to stage a place where these questions are asked.
This is, of course, the field in which we are working as funding institutions, not several times, mostly. That means we have always to watch these aspects, and on the other hand, it's like a schizophrenia, because you have to, on the one hand, be aware of the necessity of an independent and really artistically important festival, as Impulse certainly is, and on the other hand, you have to get the money for the festival. I don't know how it is, for example, in New York with you, but what's the sponsors? What are their expectations? What are the expectations of the private sponsors for concerning this audience capacity and all of that? So independent curacy is something, and the other thing is politics. That's my problem.
But that's why we sit in two different chairs, and one part is here and one part is here. So, no, but I'm aware. I mean, of course, we can talk a lot about these pragmatics, but I'm kind of like also. I mean, that's a bit maybe a bit personal and not so interesting. But there's also limits to what I can do. I'm not the best person in fundraising, simply. So if somebody needs a festival where it's mainly about fundraising, it's better to get somebody else. I can do certain things and others I cannot so well. But of course, in this case, we all do it anyway. So it's like, of course, we raise money, we make applications and all this, like everybody else. And hopefully, the structure of Impulse will also, with the next edition, really become more stable for the future. That this very it's a bit boring, but the structure of the festival is a little bit like NRW, the country. It's like very complex, a lot of people involved, and nobody knows exactly who is having which relationship with whom, and so that's part of it. So it fits very well. It's very site-specific festival in that regard.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm afraid I had to draw all this to the ground, back to the ground, because of my special alien role, as I described it in the beginning. But perhaps there are some questions from you concerning this festival and its structure and its future, whatever. Especially in terms of the aspect of content and curating. Are there some? If not, I would pass the floor to the next aspect, to the next point, to the next issue of this venue, and it's about a lecture again. And so, thank you very much, Florian, and looking forward to the future.